for our great congressional candidate in this district, Lori Buckout. Where are you, Lori? Thank you so much. It's good to see you. An officer in our military and now a person who wants to serve this great district and actually do something good for the people of this district instead of just voting with Nancy Pelosi, which is exactly what Don Davis does every single day. He's in Washington, D.C. So, Lori, thank you. We're going to talk a little bit more about your race here in a second, but a lot of you know that this state has a very special place in my heart because I grew up in a poor family. I was raised by my grandmother, and then when I graduated from high school back in 2003, I enlisted in the United States Marine Corps, and I really spent the first 4 years of my adulthood not too far from here in the eastern part of our state, becoming a young Marine and frankly becoming a young man. And I'll never forget one of the first major purchases I ever made in my entire life was when I wanted to buy, for the first time, I wanted to buy my own car as a young Marine. I was probably 19 years old. And I go to one of these off-base used car dealerships, and I find a Honda Civic. It's practical, it's cheap, it does everything I need it to do, and I'm gonna get the dealer's low interest rate financing of 21%. And by the grace of God, I had a great United States Marine Corps gunnery sergeant, Gunny Arledge. I went back, I said, Gunny, I got a great news for you. He said, what? He said, I'm gonna buy my first car. He said, congratulations, Marine, that's a big step for a young Marine. He said, what's your interest rate? I said, 21%. And he nearly smacked me upside the head. And he said, stop being an idiot. And he didn't say that, he used more colorful language, but I said, we have a couple of young people out there. He said, go to Navy Federal Credit Union, and I got an 8% interest rate and bought my car without breaking the bank. So that was one of many lessons the state of North Carolina taught me. But what we're trying to do, I talk about the difference between a 21% interest rate that the used car dealer offered me and the 8% interest rate that I got offered at a credit union, and that's pretty much the difference between the Joe Biden and Donald Trump economic plan for the United States of America, because in just a very brief time, we've seen new home purchases rise to their highest level in 5 years since the last time Donald Trump was president. We've seen the cost of rents drop for 6 months in a row. We've seen the average tax refund that's going to come to the people of North Carolina about $3,700 per family, and we see interest rates that are the lowest they've been since the last time that Donald J. Trump was president. My friends, the president is impatient. He's the most impatient person I have ever met, in fact. He constantly is pressing on the gas. He wants us to do more, but I stand here proud to say that after the first year of President Donald Trump and congressional Republicans' leadership, we are rebuilding the American dream and we are taking back this country for the people of this state. Now, there are a number of things that I'm proud of, a number of things I want to brag on, but I actually want to take a little bit of an audience poll because I was looking at some of the things that we put in the Working Families Tax Cut, this one big, great, big, beautiful bill. Now, that bill is over 1,100 pages long, and unlike most of these bills that are way too long, this is chock full of good stuff for the people of this district, the people of this state. But there are a few things in particular that I think are important for this state. Number one, that piece of legislation, the Working Families Tax Cuts, had the biggest tax cut for Social Security benefits that we've ever seen in the United States of America. Number two, it wasn't just Social Security recipients. Number two, that legislation had the biggest tax cut for people making under $100,000 that we have ever seen in tax legislation in this country. And number three, that wasn't in the Working Families Tax Cut, but one of the things I'm very proud of is that we forced all localities, whether they're red states or blue states, to report crime accurately so we could go to war against violent crime and the criminals who do that violent crime. Now those are three things, and on this part, I only want you to clap once, because again, I'm going to take an audience poll here. I'm going to ask you, what your favorite of those three pieces of legislation, those three accomplishments are that we've had so far in the Trump administration. So, if your favorite thing of those three is no taxes on Social Security, let me hear it. Okay? If your favorite thing is the biggest tax cuts for people making under 100K, let me hear that. Okay? And if your favorite thing is that we've gone to war against violent criminals, let me hear that. Okay. Now, I said only applaud once, and there's a guy up here. He applauded at least twice. He cheated the system, but I guess he wanted to save his applause till the very end. But we all heard the response. You know who did not clap for a single one of those great accomplishments of the Trump administration? Don Davis, because he voted against every single one of them. Don Davis voted against cutting taxes on Social Security. Don Davis voted against cutting taxes on those making under $100,000 a year, and Don Davis voted against going to war against violent criminals. Don Davis is not a man who stands for the people of this state or this district. He is a person who does exactly what Nancy Pelosi tells him to do, and in November, we're going to send him home and get him out of Washington, D.C. Now, the crazy thing, y'all, about a guy like Don Davis is, you know, sometimes you meet a Democrat in a red district, and, you know, I don't agree with them on everything. Of course, Democrats, Republicans disagree on politics from time to time, but you at least have some people out there, or maybe you used to, who would vote their conscience or vote the interests of their district. What makes Don so unusual is that we are in a common sense district here in the state of North Carolina, and this guy still votes every single time with Nancy Pelosi. In fact, I asked my team, I said, find a major piece of legislation, find something easy where Don Davis could vote against the Democrats and vote with his district, the moderates, the independents, even the conservative Democrats. Find me one example where this guy defied the leadership of his own party. He has never done that on any major issue that we could find. And here's just a layup, Don, an easy layup that we gave you. Frankly, it would have been bad for poor Lori's campaign chances, but he couldn't even take the bait on the Save America Act. Now, if you know anything about this legislation, what the Save America Act does is that it makes it impossible for illegal aliens to vote in our elections. Pretty common sense. Now, I think that's pretty easy, right? We don't want illegal aliens voting in our elections. My favorite thing is whenever I bring this up, you'll have some Democrat on TV who will say, well, we don't have to worry about that because illegal immigrants voting in our elections is very rare. Well, number one, how about we put it to 0, okay? Even if you're right. Number two, you're not right. It happens way more often than a lot of people appreciate. In fact, just this week, ICE arrested an illegal immigrant. I'm going to read this because I want to make sure I get it right. An illegal immigrant from Mauritania who's voted in 7 federal elections since 2008. And I have it on good authority that in every single election he voted for Don Davis. No, I don't know about that. I don't know where he voted, but I guarantee it wasn't for us. Okay? It wasn't for America First policies. Now, here's the thing, though. Even if you take the Democrats at their word, even if illegal aliens voting is very rare, then why don't we ban it anyway? It's not that complicated. It is one thing to say, I don't get it. The Democrats say, this never happens, or it happens only very rarely, on the one hand, and on the other hand, we must not stop it. It doesn't make a damn bit of sense. We need to get all illegal aliens stopping from voting in our elections. It's very common sense stuff. But even on that, Don Davis could not be persuaded to vote for the people of this district. That's like an 85% issue. You look at the majority of even Democrats across our country, a solid majority of Democrats want to pass the Save America Act, but not the guy who allegedly represents the state of North Carolina, who represents this district. So you got to kind of ask yourself, if you got a guy who votes against tax cuts for Social Security, if Don Davis votes against tax cuts for people making under $100,000 a year, if Don Davis votes against going to war against criminal, illegal aliens, and violent criminals, then Don Davis doesn't really represent you. Let's vote for Lori, a person who will, and will do so proudly. Now, I want to say a couple other things because I've given Don Davis a lot of attention here, and now I'm going to go on to Roy Cooper. So first of all, on every single thing, now Roy wasn't in Washington, D.C., but on every single one of these critical wins for the Trump administration to have gotten for the people of this district, the people of this state, Roy Cooper would have voted against all that. That's reason number one, we can't send a guy to the Senate. We want a senator who represents you. We want a senator who doesn't represent illegal aliens and fraud, but who represents hard work and the good people of the state of North Carolina. And because we want those things, we need Michael Whatley in the United States Senate, not Roy Cooper. Michael. Now, he stood up and clapped for that. It would have been a bad sign if he wouldn't have stood up and clapped for that, but he passed the test there. So here's the thing about Roy Cooper, okay? So there's been a lot of debate about what exactly our foreign policy should be with regards to Russia and Ukraine. The President of the United States has been very clear. He wants the killing to stop. He wants to get back to commerce. He wants to stop the innocent people who are losing their lives in that conflict. I happen to admire that. Of course, I'm biased, but I think that's the right idea. Now, here's the crazy thing, though, about Roy Cooper. Roy Cooper is one of these people who clearly cares way more for foreign countries than he does the United States of America. You see the passion in his voice when he talks about protecting illegal aliens. You'll never hear that passion when he's talking about the people in this room. You hear the passion in his voice when he talks about sending hundreds of billions of dollars to the war in Ukraine. And yet, the one Ukrainian Roy Cooper didn't care about was this innocent girl, Irina, who had her throat slashed by a person who should have never been on the streets of this country to begin with. So ask yourself, why did he spend his entire career making it hard to lock up violent criminals? Why did he spend his entire career going after our brave police officers who are trying to keep our streets safe? Why does he care so much about the war in Ukraine 6,000 miles away, but doesn't give a damn about an innocent Ukrainian girl who lost her life in our backyard because he wouldn't do his job? And the simple fact is that Roy Cooper doesn't stand for you. He doesn't fight for you. He will never fight for you, but Michael Whatley will. He better, but he will. I know he will. He's a good man. I know he will. Let me just say a couple of final things because I want to brag on the president. I want to brag on what we've been able to accomplish in Washington. First of all, we under the Biden administration, we dug ourselves a hole in this country. We got to be honest about that fact. The average American family under Joe Biden's leadership lost about $3,300 in take-home pay. Now, that was a combination of higher taxes, but also that terrible inflation crisis that we had when Joe Biden was president. When Joe Biden was president, not a single month did we see inflation as low as it was last month and the month before under Donald Trump's leadership. That's something big to brag on. That's something big to celebrate. Because what that means is that you and your families can afford to live a better life. When Joe Biden was spending all that money on green new scams, when he was driving up the cost of everything, he was making it hard for you and your families to get by in this beautiful country that all of us love. So I happen to think it's a pretty nice thing that we've got a president of the United States that is not fighting to give away hundreds of billions of dollars to green energy scams, but is fighting to keep the American people's money in the American people's pocket, because that's exactly where it belongs. But what we've seen in about, a year and a month, I guess, of President Trump's leadership is that the average American family, while they lost $3,200 when Biden was president, they've gained about $1,300 while Donald Trump was president. Now that's dollars and cents. Now, there's a good news and a bad news to that. The good news is that means you're $1,300 richer than you were about a year ago. That's what we're fighting